Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And joining us live from Poland is Roy Coughlan. He is an entrepreneur and a podcast coach. Welcome to the show, Roy.
Thank you very much, AJ. Thank you for having me on the show.
You are welcome to the show. You are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people in Poland and across the globe will benefit from what we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about building a multi-nation business, as well as we'll also talk about podcast marketing, podcast coaching with you. So first, to understand from you, Roy, is to how were you able to build 15 companies in 5 nations? Help us with that, with a bit of a background to that, so that we know about what are the lessons learned, and through those lessons, a lot of the audience, which consists of a lot of businesses, small entrepreneurs, and people who want to do good in life, they can learn from that.
Sure. I suppose let's go back to the start. I was like entrepreneurial from a young age. So from 9, I was going around washing cars. I was doing gardening, delivering leaflets. At 11, I was doing newspaper. So I actually was delivering newspapers all around the area. With the money from that, when I was 14, I bought a lawnmower and I started going around cutting grasses. Then at 18, I was buying and selling motorbikes. So there was always an entrepreneur in me. I worked for about 12 years for a company, 2 companies in Ireland doing construction. So I was doing mechanical and electrical engineering in 2 big companies in Ireland. But the entrepreneur was still in me. So even during that time, like I set up one company doing web design and internet stuff at an early age. Then I moved to Poland and I set up a lot of companies. I like basically managing properties, then doing commercial properties. I built houses with a company building houses. I built 30 apartments. And then I was like I've just constantly been doing different businesses. So I had some companies in Ireland. So that's why one of the countries. Then I was like a international franchise consultant. So helping people be a franchise coach all over the world. And I set that up in Biarritz for tax reasons. So I always believe in tax optimization, not tax avoidance. So that's why I'm always looking at things like that. I've done companies doing currency exchange. I set up a company in the UK, which is kind of doing web design and stuff like that from Poland, but eventually changed that around, moved that out. Because I look at the tax advantages always. I'm just and the cost for running a company. In Poland, I had a load of companies, over 10 companies there. And now what I'm doing is I've got in Estonia, e-residency, so I have the business there. So I'm putting a lot of things there. And the reason being is that there's 0 corporation tax and you just pay your tax when you take your money. And there's a double taxation agreement with Poland. So it works good for me. So I always kind of encourage people, investigate yourself, because my experience with accountants and even solicitors, they just tell you what you ask them. They don't kind of go, listen, do this, you're going to get the best tax. It's not, I don't even know if they're getting kickback some of the time, because they don't seem to have our best interest at heart. I'll give you an example. When I was doing property in Poland, I had a Polish company and an Irish company doing the same thing, because I had a load of Irish, English, and even American investors. But I kind of done it in a way that so I could offset a lot of my Irish costs having the Polish company. And I got a tax bill. And I bought a book called Tax Magic, which was written by a revenue guy. And I went to the accountants. I said, hey, can't I do this, and this? Yeah, you can. And I got a tax rebate. And that has happened. And so what I say to people is, no one will care about your business more than you do. So make sure, if there's a book in your country, read it, highlight it, and have the little things, because there's so much, you can even have money for your kids. There's so much deductions you can do. So make sure you know what you're entitled to, because the money's better in your pocket than the IRS or whatever in your country it's called, the tax.
Right. And then you were at one time later on, you were in debt, liable for $5 million. Am I right?
Yeah. So I know I can laugh because I've laughed just through my journey. I wasn't laughing at the time. So what happened is when I went to Poland, I found lots of good investments. So I got syndicates. So I was doing okay myself. But I had very wealthy investors coming in from Ireland. Like they were worth 30 million, 10 million, and I just had kind of made my first million. So I was like the small boy in the kid, but I was doing everything. And everything was going good. And then when the crash happened in America, it took a while to kind of go across the oceans, but they started losing everything. I mean, one of them had properties in about 10 different countries, lost it all. And I thought they would get it right. So what I done is I was doing very well because I was managing over 100 properties as well. I had a team of about 14 people with me. So I started putting my own money into, like, say, the commercial. And I basically said, look, I'll increase my share if you don't give it back to me, and that kind of thing. But I was convinced it would, and it didn't come right. And eventually all the decks came down. And unfortunately, in Poland, when you're the president of the company, and I was the president of a lot of companies, you're personally liable. The accountant didn't tell me that, and the solicitor didn't tell me that. So instead of when every project was finished, I was going to have about 5 million, I became personally liable for 5 million. And just through that journey, then kind of, I saw so much corruption. I saw like the bailiffs, how corrupt they are, the judges, the banks, everybody that was involved in this. So what happened is I got through it and I went to an event, and the event was What's Your Quest? And I thought, I need to expose this, because a lot of people, unfortunately, and this is an international thing, they throw in the towel. They just think there's no light at the end of the tunnel. I said, they need to know it's not their fault. This is all orchestrated. And also at the event, there was fantastic speakers. And I hated public speaking at the time. I was just like I was late to the game. So I came back and I was like 45, and I joined Toastmasters. Then I joined another Toastmasters. Then I formed a Toastmasters club, a morning club, international entrepreneurs. I became a coach. I entered every competition, both in Polish and in English. I got into the final of 5 countries. I done an open mic TEDx. I did comedy speeches. I read every book on speaking. I started watching TEDx and TED videos, and basically went from being terrified to competent speaking. And like what I say to entrepreneurs is, speaking is so important, because if you're even trying to do a pitch and everything, or even if you're an employee, you will get the raise when you can speak. Even though, unfortunately, sometimes people might have 20% capacity compared to the guy, but if he's shy, he just keeps his head down and gets the work done, but he won't get the promotion. So whatever age you're at, don't ever say, because I tell people it's a mindset thing. You say, I can't speak. That's what I was telling me. That was the story I was telling myself, because I was kind of, during my school ages, the teachers kind of insult you or make you speak in front of everybody. You start stuttering, you get afraid. And I've interviewed lots of people on the speaking podcast, and that's a high percentage of people have had a problem from speaking from a school age. So don't let a teacher do that to you. Just make sure, and don't ever tell yourself a story, I can't do this. If you know something is important, put your head down and you can do it. Or if there's something, you can obviously outsource a lot of things, but that's the one thing you can't outsource. So I encourage people, kind of put your head down for that.
Right. So for a lot of people, young entrepreneurs, in a nutshell, what are the few things that you would want them to always remember in their entrepreneurship journey? Whether they go for 5 nations or multi-nations or not is their choice. But in a nutshell, one thing you certainly said was that, no one will care about your business better than you do.
Yeah. So like what I would say is, when you decide I'm going to do a business. So a lot of times people, they're actually working for somebody when they do it, and they're saying, will I just make the jump? I would kind of encourage people, because you just don't know what sales you make and everything. Start building it on the side, just and build your reserves as well. So if you've got a salary, build it. Try to have a cushion of at least 6 months, a year if possible, because we're all optimistic. We all believe we'll do this. And it's the case of you open the doors and then you hear the crickets. So it's like, just expect the worst and just try to have it all in the background while you're building it. The other thing is, be committed, because it's one thing that I'm learning lately is there's a load of people that they don't value your time. Like I know, say Lunch Club. I do a call once a week on Lunch Club. It's good to meet but the amount of times people would just write 10 minutes beforehand, oh, I can't make this time. And before I used to say, okay, grand, let's reschedule it. And now I'm saying, no, they're disrespecting my time. And the same with, like, you probably have experienced that yourself. There, like with podcasts, like you'd be scheduling a call, people don't turn up, and it's like, and then they go, oh, let's reschedule. And before you say grand, and I'm not doing it no more. Like, cause like, especially for the crypto, the amount of people that are flaky, it's a flaky world because a lot of people became very wealthy in the crypto world. And what happened is they just don't respect your time. And
Right.
I used to be like, it's not affecting me kind of thing, but it was like, it's kind of an icky feeling because you're scheduling. Like if I didn't turn up today, you're after preparing your questions. You're after doing a lot of work. And it's like, it's not a case of if we schedule it for 2 weeks' time that you just get back into it. You have to go back through that again because it's not fresh in your brain. So now I'm really conscious of my time. So what I would say to the entrepreneur is, one, don't ever do that to anybody else. Be really committed to your time. When you say you're going to turn up. Don't turn up, like 10 minutes later and just think it's grand. If you're ill, tell them in the morning. Don't tell them 5 minutes or an hour beforehand, because remember, they've got their day, they've got their calendar. Respect people's time, and also be committed to everything that you do. And whatever business you're doing, don't say, I'll try this for 3 months or whatever. Like, just kind of say, commit to a year at least and have a plan. And what I would say is, for the entrepreneur, most people, they think, I'll just go on Facebook and I'll do a post to my friends on Facebook. Unfortunately, you know that yourself. You think you put a post out. Like, the way it's changed now is you get lucky to get 2 thumbs up, 2 hearts, unless you tag at everybody, which annoys people. So the thing is, you have to spend the time doing the marketing. Most people don't do that. I read a load of books on marketing, and if there's something new out, like, for example, I know the Reddit works well with my Polish podcast, but I can't get it to work with any of the other ones. So I've ordered a book. It's coming out today. It's like, I need to really understand this because I can see the value to it. And I look at a load of marketing books that I've got. And the thing is, every time I start a new business, I go through them books again because my head is not in the place. Like, I've done games on the phone, marketing with the games. I've done a load of different types of business. And when I reread the books, then I have that head, for example, say the podcasting or the coaching, whatever you're doing, you're rereading it and you're looking at it with that lens. And a lot of people outsource things like that. People say, oh, I can help you with search engine optimization. I can do this, I can do that. There's a load of fraudsters out there. What I would say is, when all these magic people come to you, look at their social media. There's people telling you, I can get millions of downloads, I can do this, I can do that. And you look and they've got 10 friends, and you look at their YouTube channel and it's not as big as yours. You've got a great... And it's a case of, you have to take control, and you can outsource stuff, but make sure you're getting good value. It's like, if you're putting £1 in and you're getting, £2 back, great, keep that tap flowing. But most of the time you're spending $1,000 and you're lucky to get anything back. And I've heard of people, talk to people, like, I was doing this for 3 months and I didn't get any. Like, after a week, if you're doing paid advertisement, then it's not working. You need to change, because don't live in hope when you're marketing. You can look at the analytics, and like, even say, when I've got the 5 podcasts, I'm tracking daily. I'm looking at all the statistics. I go, why is this dropping? I have the averages for everything. And if I see it dropping, I go, oh, I forgot to put it into this group. So, for example, I'll give it, like, say, the Polish one. And this is an example, not just for podcasting, but for any business. When I do the Polish podcast, I post in Polish and foreigners, Polish in Much, Polish in New York, Polish in English. They're all groups where there's Polish people. And what happens is, a lot of Polish, they've moved to Ireland, Norway, all these different countries, and then they meet locals. So the locals speak English, but they can't speak Polish. And they might be coming back to meet the grandparents or just come on a visit. So there's a load of people that are there that will actually be interested. And that's why, like, that podcast is over 2 million. And it's because of finding the right groups. Sometimes it's hard to find them, and sometimes people will kick you out. But it's just a case of next. So when you're kind of trying to build your marketing, don't just live in hope, or just don't be posting. Know what's working, track it. And by tracking everything, you'll know what's working and what's not working, and don't waste your time on everything. Just do the things that are working.
Absolutely. Great information indeed, Roy. And now, coming to the podcast thing, you've already spoken a bit about podcast. Now you are a podcast coach. So how did that transition happen When did this happen? How did you realize that, okay, you can be a very good podcast coach? How did that? Tell us a bit about that.
Okay, so I suppose what happened is when I done all the speaking that I mentioned earlier, I went to another event and there was a guy doing a workshop saying how to start a podcast. I never even thought about it. I used to listen to podcasts, but never thought of it. And I said, oh, this is a great way for me to get my message out, especially for kind of the awakening, exposing the fraud. But I didn't want to do that one first because I thought it's a bit kind of, controversial. So I said, I know loads of speakers because I've been around the world. So that was the first one, speaking podcast. Then I done the meditation. Meditation helped me on my journey when I lost everything. And I knew a lot of people done the meditation. And basically it's free as well. And because when I was going through my journey, there was people done meditation ones, but then they disappeared or else they started charging it. And when you lose everything, you're watching the pennies. So I wasn't going to be paying for a meditation. Then I done the Polish one, the awakening, and the crypto. And what happened is I was doing workshops with my Polish when I was in Toastmasters. I was doing loads of stuff, so loads of people were actually starting podcasts because of me. And then people were coming to me and I was helping them. And I was like, nobody would even buy a cup of coffee for the amount of time. It's like what I said earlier about respecting your time. Like they were just kind of assuming, hey, he's doing this. And it's something I've had a conversation with someone. Like if you've got a friend that's a doctor, people go to him as if like, you should do that for me for nothing. If you have a friend that's a mechanic, we have to respect the people that do it. Like if you do a bit of barter, grand. But usually what I found is they're taking, and they're not even supporting your podcast. They're not sharing your podcast. They're not like if you saw somebody is 100% behind your back and they want to start a podcast, you go, he's got my back all the time. You might do. So the reason I started actually becoming a coach is I said, people aren't respecting my time. So I'm going to, and I set up the course and I have a free webinar because I know I cater for all budgets as well. I know some people are going through that they don't have the money. So I have like a kind of half-hour webinar that people look at. Then I have a course. Then I do one-on-one. And it was more just respecting myself. But I enjoy it as well because like sometimes, if someone's doing a coach, they'll do it a certain way. But what I do is I cater for the person. Some people are like, Class A, they call them, where they're like, okay, let's do this, get the logo, get this. And they can do it very fast. And other people are like, they want everything perfect. They want to do it slow. And they could take a few months. And I do that as well. I just kind of cater for the person instead of pushing my system on them. So, and it's like a lot of it is kind of down to the marketing as well. And I kind of look at their style. And like one thing I would say about the podcasting, because most people are, you can say obviously marketing helps, but everyone is on about, oh, should I do the one thing I say is have a brilliant show, have fantastic conversations. That's critical because even if you're not good at marketing, if it's really good, someone will share it. Or if they do come in, they'll stay in. But sometimes there's people, they don't even pay attention. Like what you're doing there now, I see like you've got brilliant graphics, the countdown and everything, the logo. Like that is very, very few people are doing something like that. Like that's time to create that, but it looks brilliant. And, you're like, even this changing all the graphic styles, it looks fantastic. And that's entertaining to people as well. Like they're listening to the message, but they're also going, wow, this looks very good. So but not everyone does that. So when you create an entertaining show, ask great questions and have like even the background and all that stuff, that's going to help you build. And I think that's the most important thing than doing 50 kind of marketing things.
Right. So why 5 podcasts? You have got 5 podcasts, and secondly, what is the thing nowadays people want to learn in podcast coaching? On one side, a lot of people are getting into podcasts. The listenership is growing. The video market is also growing, and at the same time, there is a bit of a pod fade. A lot of people are leaving because it's very difficult to monetize. And you are absolutely right. People waste your time. People take your time, take. They are not bothered. That is why, I took some time, but I've set some very strong rules for myself. And, and that has helped me a lot. It has given me peace of mind, as well as now I know how to prioritize guests. And one thing I fully agree with you about the time part is that how do you expect to inform the host who has prepared everything for the live show, and in the last 5 minutes you expect that you go to a certain degree of mental level when you are going into, it's almost like you are getting into a battlefield, it is a different sort of a battlefield, and you ask them to turn back. It is very difficult to get to that situation. So I take this opportunity to tell them that reschedule only when you have to, because you will perhaps not get the same output if you are revisiting it again after 15 or 20 days. Your mind does not just go back to the same level, or you are a bit hesitant. You lose that sense of respect until it's a genuine reason. So that is what I think. But I want to understand from what are the nuggets that you would like to share for both podcast guests as well as hosts in terms of making the best of podcasting in whatever way it is.
So I actually do both. So I've got obviously the five, and now I'm on your fantastic show. And like what I do, I go as kind of the guest first. I know I've had people come onto my show and they don't know nothing about me. Like I went in and looked at your show. I saw exactly how you do it, and so I spent the time and I was looking. So I know kind of the style that you use, and as well as reading the platform details, all the different things you do. A lot of people don't. So the way I see it is, don't just turn up as a guest. Respect the host. Learn his show. And like, not just saying to you no because of this, but I will give the host a 5-star rating and a review, and then I'll do it on if they're on say Apple and Spotify as well, because I kind of respect the time that they've done. As you said, it's monetization. It's a tricky one, but definitely I've learned that one as well. But yeah, like I would say, when you're researching, don't just do like there's people that don't. I call them, they're on the track. They're just trying to go on every single show. I don't. I look at what's actually. Hey, I think I like this style. I think this is going to serve me. This is the right kind of podcast. Whereas some people, they're just going on shows for the sake of going on shows, and that's not the right way to do it. And plus, when you research as well. Like you're in the top, I think 2.5% or something like that, maybe even higher. So if you're paying attention and you're doing your homework, you're not going on shows with 3 viewers, which happens as well. So you have to respect your time as well. On the other side of the fence, then as a podcast host, like I don't look at I don't take someone on based on their social media. I take them on based on what they're bringing to the table. And I kind of say it's more about the audience and everything, because you've probably had that situation where I call them a pitch fest. Like they're coming on my business. I had one guy and he was doing kind of like websites and stuff like that. Every question I asked him, he was turning it into that. So I didn't put it out. I was like, no, this is... And the fact that he was in his own head, he didn't even know it wasn't put out. He's never even contacted me since. And there's a lot of people like that. So I will always make sure that they know where it's going. Like I say to people, I tell them at the start how I do it. I say, listen, this is the way it's going to start. I got a recorded intro, outro. I'll introduce you. Sometimes I'll just do like a bullet point, get them to introduce themselves. Other times I might introduce just the way I'm feeling and everything. But I always say, look, near the end, I'll ask you, how can they get in contact with you? And then I'll put it on the show notes. So that way then they're aware they don't need to be constantly kind of pitching and giving me their website all the way through it. And it's like, I don't know about you, but what I found as well is when I do put it out, I mean, I'm obviously in my form, I kind of say, look, I'll be tagging you, whatever. So I tag people. Some people reshare it, they comment and everything. When they do that, I go, they get it. They're helping me. And I do shorts, I put it out more and everything. There's others, you hear nothing. There's sometimes I'll send somebody all the links and everything. They don't even respond to me. And like we had a little chat prior to recording, and it's just a nice way of doing it. Some people, they turn up just on the moment and they're just ready to go. And as soon as you win, they're gone. And that, especially on live calls, because I've had a lot of famous people, and some of them, they're going, what's going on here? But other times, people might stay on for half an hour, they're chatting away, and it's just, even just to say thank you for having me on the show. And like, you remember these things. And it's like, you don't put that show, like, for example, people send me books. The other day, I had a lady, and she just said, she's doing worms and stuff. She goes, I want to send you one of these things. And I was like, great, just send me your address. I'm going to put her episode ahead of the others, because it's like she actually appreciated the conversation and she's doing it. And also, just for those that are podcasting, I used to go away and buy the books. And I was like, why am I paying money for a book? And now I have it on my form. If you're promoting a book, send me the book. And I was like, and I also say that, like, I've got I don't like reading electronic books. Send me the physical book, but then I'll have the book and I'll hold it up and I'll say, oh, she's written this book or he's written this book. And it's a kind of another kind of verification, but it's just kind of watching all these different things. And I just kind of make sure that I keep it on track and everything. Don't let them to go off. And like one thing with the podcasting, sometimes people are going to go, oh, what's the sweet spot? You know, some people say, oh, it should be 5-10 minutes. The way I say it is, Joe Rogan's about 3 hours, Patrick Bet-David's about 2 hours. My Polish, which I mentioned earlier, about 2 million, that's 5 to 10 minutes. I've got other ones 30 minutes. I've done live calls that go up to 2 hours. If it's entertaining, it's like reading a sales letter. If it's good, some people say, oh, it should be on a page. And I've heard of people getting way more sales on an 8-page sales letter because it's more information that's relevant. So if your podcast is good and relevant and the audience are listening for whatever topic you're discussing, they will stay. So, you know, you don't need to say, oh, it should be only 10 minutes or it should be, you know, I need to be doing a 3-hour podcast. Just kind of feel it and then track your stuff as well. So when you go into most podcast platforms, there's analytics. So I go in and I look. Like, for example, I had a guest a few months ago and he didn't come with energy. He was like, I just felt bad as I was even doing it, which rarely happens. Normally you connect with the person and you enjoy the conversation. Like, to be honest, I'm really enjoying this now and even prior to. But I just felt this wasn't going right. Like, and I still put it out. I shouldn't have, but I put it out. And I was like, I don't think that went well. And I looked at it. It dropped down to 8% after about 5 minutes. So everybody, and I was then thinking, okay, I know this was a brilliant conversation. And I looked at it and it was like high the whole way across. So now I know I'm not serving my listeners by just throwing out something for the sake because I did an interview. It's like, if he's not bringing his energy to the table, and it's not just that you need an energetic person. It's just that, like, somebody that's not really caring. And in future, if that happens, I'm like, no, it's not going out. And I think you have to respect yourself as a host as well, that it's your show. And if you want to serve your listeners, you're bringing the best to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Roy, you have produced and edited over 1,200 episodes with over 100 lives. So I want to understand, what would you like to tell now that podcasting is becoming a part of everybody's lives and it's expanding all over the world? What would you like to tell the guests, host, as well as businesses to make the best use of it? If you can quickly sum a few points for all these different segments so that they can make the best use of it. For example, you talked about guests. Now, in terms of sharing, in terms of just taking. So in that case, what I have done is, that I have created 2 lists. One is the priority guests and one is the non-priority guests after the episode. I don't decide that. The guest decides. So if they don't interact with the content that they wanted so desperately, then they go into non-priority list. But those people who are interacting with that content or who are actually, happy about it, because this is what they have made the effort, we have made the effort, then you put them and you promote. Because what happens is, I see only 8 to 10% people of all the guests you do are actually interacting or engaging with your content. So why waste the 90% unnecessarily, on do it, but put it in a queue then. And you don't decide the queue, let them decide it. And it is decided by their actions after the podcast is done. This is one. So it all depends on how you want to make the best use of your own appearance. It will come, but it will come as per the queue says. But I obviously will respect those people who respect my time, who respect the show, or respect the content that has been created. This is one of the things. What are the other things that you would like to tell podcast hosts also, how they can, make the best of what they are doing? Podcast guests specifically, because they have been looking for a show like this. Finally, they get a chance. What can they do? And also from the business point of view, what are the best things that they can do to get the best out of podcasting?
It's one question that most people kind of do, because some people get into the podcasting thinking, oh, I'm going to make a lot of money and this is easy, and it's like then they kind of realize, and that's why they disappear. But what I would say is, the first thing is, if you have your own business, if you're a coach or you're selling, you have that. mention that during your show, and don't wait till the end. Just kind of say it. Like, you don't have to talk for 5 minutes about it, but you can just say it, like, hey, I'm a podcasting coach. And one thing that I would advise any business owner is, I have, like, when I usually do my recordings on Zoom, so I have my QR code and as well as my podcast in the background, and I say, hey, you can find me here, and I say, look, just take a screenshot, because before, with the QR codes, and this is for any business as well, so even if you're not thinking about doing a podcast, if you're speaking on the show, start using the QR codes. People take out their cameras, and they just or their phone, sorry, and they just press the button. And you don't need a special app like you did a few years ago. Because I thought QR codes were going to, just disappear, but they didn't. They actually got their act together. And now it's very easy to use the QR code. So what I would suggest, whether you're podcasting or you're speaking or whatever business you are, start using the QR codes. And when you're putting stuff, make it easy for people to find your social media and stuff like that. And for monetization, for example, you can actually get websites. There's websites that, like Podpage. I use a Podpage. And I can actually have sponsorship on that. I can have my book. I can have different things like that. I can have donations. And I don't say it as much about the donations. Hey, if you like this, you can donate. I've got a few. I've got a few, but it's not consistent. Then it might just stop, and then somebody give you $100 or whatever, which is great. It helps towards all the costs for it. But I know one podcast that I listen to. His name is Blind Boy, an Irish guy. He says it all the time, and he puts it in the middle of the thing. And he's got, like, on Patreon about 5,000 people supporting him, because he's like, look, you don't have to pay. It's a model based on kindness, but those that can pay are paying for the people that can't. And he just does it in a nice way. And so if that's your way, you can do it, but just be consistent. Don't just mention it once. And the other thing is, like, a lot of people, they think, oh, I'll just reach out to the different sponsors. When you're building at the start, it's hard. That's why I reckon if you've got your own services, it's a lot bit better, because they're going to look for the numbers. And also, like, this it can be $10 per 1,000 or up to 40. And then you can have start, middle, and end. But then remember, if you're doing all this, it's a lot of work, because you're actually putting them in. So if you can get somebody long-term, so maybe have a pricing scale. Hey, if you're coming in for a year cheaper, 6 months or whatever. But remember, it's work and you have to do it. You can't tell somebody they're going to be the sponsor and you forget to say it. So you have to kind of serve them as well. But, like, for example, on that page that I was talking about, I can have the sponsors. So when people go into my podcast, they see down the end sponsors. When they click on that, it goes to a page they've got and a website. And also on each show, I put it on the side. So it's like just a way, and slowly but surely, that you can do that. You can also do kind of cooperations with people. In a collaboration, you can say, hey, I'll promote you. I know you can't give me the money, but let's work on a system that you give me a percentage of the business that comes through, whether you've got a certain link or you're just doing all their marketing. And that way it's a win-win. So you've no problem then mentioning, hey, you should go to da-da-da-da, and you'll get a percentage of it. So, like, there's a lot of different ways to do it. But one thing I would say is, when you're starting off, there is costs, like Calendly, StreamYard, as you're doing, they all add up. And just try to offset them at the start, and then just slowly build. And, like, I think, like, for example, doing live definitely helps, because you can put it out to a few different platforms, depending on the level that you've got as well. Because sometimes you can only put it out to 3, other times you can put it out to TikTok, Twitch, all these different things. But they do help. The numbers build up. And if you're doing that, like, you've got all the combination of the numbers you're doing, which in turn, then you can go back to, say, a potential sponsor and go, hey, look, I've got this averaging X amount per show. Because they might go into, say, YouTube and go, oh, I'm only seeing 20 views or whatever. But they don't say, you're on Rumble, you're on BitChute, you're on this, you're on that, the audio. And it could be like 2,000 per show, 3,000, whatever it is. But it doesn't matter. But there will be people interested. And if you know your analytics as well, like, obviously a company that wants to do branding, that's like a car company, that it doesn't matter where they are. But if someone is specific, say to the US or whatever, and you got 50% of your audience, they'll be happy with that. Know your analytics and then approach the company for that. So, like, I wouldn't make podcasting a kind of thing that you're getting into it just for the money. Get into it for the mission, for the love of it, what you do, and that you're serving and you're helping people, and the money will follow. Then once you kind of make sure that you're tracking all the numbers, then people will be interested, because they go, hey, he's got decent numbers. I want to actually promote on his show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a podcast coach, what is the value that you bring to your clients, so that, others who are listening, if they want your services, they can connect with you?
I mean, like I take them through a whole kind of process. It's like, for example, the logo. I tell them how to design the logo, what will actually catch their attention, the website, green screen. I mean, I put the throw over there now because I knew we were actually doing it on StreamYard, and I can't, I think you can use Obi, but I could never get my head around that. But when I don't, I've got a half a green screen, so I've got, you see the bookshelf, and then I can have whatever background that I've
Right.
got on it. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, those people who would want to learn more from you, Roy, what is the best way for them? And those who would want to, connect for getting training from you, coaching from you, what is the best way for them?
Yeah, so and sorry, I kind of got I got a flash and I forgot what. So just finishing up, I'll take them through everything, the marketing, how to edit. Like I'm not very technical. Sometimes people think, oh, it's going to be difficult to edit. No, it's not. It's easy. I'll show you every single thing. I'll show you what things to noise, what to watch out for. Take you through the whole lot, and even how to pitch, how to get on shows, how to get guests, the whole. And it's like, can you do it yourself? Absolutely. I'm doing it for over 5 years. And I've like 4 in the top 0.5%, one jump back out now, and the others at 1.5. So I kind of know what I'm doing. And like they can find me on bio.link/podcaster. And even if they're not interested in doing they can find the 5 podcasts that I'm doing: the Crypto, Awakening, Exposing Fraud and Corruption, but Solution, and the other ones that I mentioned. And what I would say, and I always say the thing is, make sure that you give AJ a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, and a comment. And you don't realize how important it is, because when you actually do that, unfortunately, the algorithms in Facebook and all, they're not really showing. They show it to a tiny percentage. And if there's no engagement, then that's it. But when there's a bit of engagement, then it shows it to more people, which in turn allows them to show. So what I would say is he's bringing value to you with all the different guests that he's bringing. So make sure it's a small thing. Thumbs up, 5-star rating. Go into Spotify, you can just hit the 3 bots, give them a 5-star rating. Go into Apple, give them a 5-star rating and a nice review. It really helps, because when you do that, he'll go up the charts, he'll get higher up, and make sure that you actually support what he's doing.
Thank you for your recommendation, Roy. That those are very kind words of you, and thank you for all the great insights into big business, insight into podcasting. That will certainly bring a lot of value to the people in India, in Poland, and across the world. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much.